It's the last day of January 2025, and there's been a lot of information going on in the news between new policies, new proposals, as well as just different things within taxes and just everything going crazy. So I figured, what's a better time than to discuss what has been being thrown around? Trump wants to eliminate income tax. Is this even possible? Trump has proposed a radical change to the U.S. tax system, eliminating federal income taxes entirely. But is this actually possible? What does it mean for you, your paycheck, and the future of the U.S. economy? Today I'm going to break all this down, what the proposal really means, who wins, who loses, and whether it's just political talk. I'm a licensed CPA with nearly 2 decades of experience, and my goal is to educate and help you save money on all things financial and tax related. If this sounds good to you, be sure to subscribe and share this video. Alright, so let's get into kind of the meat of the video. So let's break down the proposal. Trump has suggested eliminating the IRS and replacing it with the ERS, External Revenue Service. This new agency would be responsible for collecting tariffs, essentially shifting the U.S. government's revenue from income taxes to taxes on imported goods. This would mean no more federal income tax, no more FICA taxes, which is Social Security and Medicare, higher tariffs on imports, a potential national consumption tax, and all those items considered will completely drastically revamp our tax system as we've known for many years. Let's take a look back at history and where the whole entire income tax has started. So the federal income tax dates back to 1862 when President Lincoln introduced a 3% tax on income between $600 and $10,000 and a 5% tax on anything above that. Over the years, tax rates have changed drastically, even reaching 94% in 1944 for income that was over $200,000. That was during World War II, where there was, serious need for cash and serious need for money. This isn't the first time an idea like Trump has been discussed, but no similar proposal has ever became law or even became close to law. The financial reality: can tariffs actually replace income taxes? Currently, the U.S. government collects around $4.7 trillion in revenue from income taxes, while tariffs, on the other hand, only bring in about $77 billion. That's just about 1.7% of revenue. So there is a huge gap in between what is currently brought in now to what is brought in with the income taxes. So again, I'm not necessarily sure that this is actually going to be able to become a reality, as the revenue will have to be made up somewhere in order to cover, basic services and basic necessities that we do have in place today. However, there is a portion of it that can potentially make up the difference. Some lawmakers propose a national sales tax, which is also known as a fair tax. Under the current proposal from Representative Buddy Carter of Georgia, this would be a 23% federal tax on all goods and services. However, families would get a tax-free spending allowance. For example, a family of 4 wouldn't pay taxes on the first $30,000 that they spend. So who wins and who loses under this new requirement, under this new proposal? Let's break it down with a specific example. So let's talk about a family of 4, so similar to above, as I mentioned, the family of 4 who would not pay any taxes on the first $30,000 they spend. So this family of 4 would be earning $150,000 and they would file married filing jointly. Under the current tax system, federal income tax and FICA tax would equal about $30,585 per year. Under the fair tax system, assuming 90% of the income is spent and 10% of the income is saved, your total tax-free spending is $30,000. Your taxable spending would be $105,000, and your fair tax would be about $24,150. That's about a savings of roughly $6,000 under this particular scenario. Now, again, that is a decent amount of savings. However, at what cost does that come with? Will goods increase in price? Is this actually able to become a reality? Or will you ultimately end up having to pay more in taxes and more in goods for everyday stuff that you need, such as groceries, your car, anything else that you might need out there that you'd have to purchase? And again, if we increase that up to 20%, so if we assume that same family saves 20% instead of 10%, they could save around $10,000 annually. So as you could see, this makes it more of an incentive to save a portion of your paycheck instead of spending every last dime. So let's talk about who the winners are in this scenario. Higher income earners who end up paying a lower effective tax rate, individuals who like to save a vast majority of their paycheck, since the only amount is spending tax, whereas the current tax law taxes income. So regardless of how much you save, it's irrelevant, as that money coming in as income will ultimately be taxed. And then as well as domestic manufacturers, if these tariffs can encourage U.S. production. So if you have domestic manufacturers, instead of everything being produced out in China, some domestic manufacturers could stand to gain a good amount of work and a good amount of production in new factories. What about the losers? Who's going to lose in this particular scenario? Lower income individuals would lose benefits like the earned income credit. So that's a huge amount of money for many low income individuals. And in fact, that earned income credit eliminates and even refunds a portion of lower income families' taxes. So sometimes lower income families are actually paid to work in addition from the IRS. So if you eliminate that particular portion of the IRS law, these lower income families could lose out on a great deal of money, end up paying a higher tax percentage of their salaries. Any import heavy businesses, again, with higher tariffs, these things are going to start costing more money, and then these items are going to end up getting passed on to the consumer at a higher cost. Potentially government-funded programs, since Social Security and Medicare will now need a new funding source, this can potentially cause an even more of a deficit and shortfall within these funds, as we're already facing a shortfall and deficit within the Social Security and Medicare fund. So again, questionable of how we're going to be able to make up the funding for each of those programs. And then again, consumers can fare to lose out on this, because if tariffs drive up prices, it can cause further inflation, as well as just make things unaffordable. Now let's discuss, will this actually happen? Do I believe that this will actually happen? In my professional opinion, I believe this is highly unlikely, and here's why. Congress would need to approve it, and it's just doubtful that there's enough bipartisan support in order to get this passed through. Eliminating the IRS would leave thousands unemployed, creating political resistance. Replacing income taxes with tariffs and the national sales tax would be a massive shift, likely causing economic disruption. What I believe is more realistic is that Trump and Congress will be extending the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. So that is the current bill that's in place, the current tax law that's in place, that was passed during Trump's first presidential term back in 2017. This can be made either be extended or made permanent. He is also proposing to have no taxes on overtime, no taxes on tips, and no taxes on the Social Security income, which I believe are more achievable policies, given the fact that, so far what Trump has said that he's going to deliver on, he has in fact delivered on. But again, that's going to be dependent upon Congress and whether or not he can get that through with his slim majority. But I do believe that some sort of edition of this bill is more likely to be passed versus, a radical change within the tax system. So what are my final thoughts? My final thoughts are, this is just campaign talk. It's just political talk that the media grabs, picks up, and people go crazy about it. This proposal sounds very dramatic, but is mostly campaign talk. While tax reform is always a hot topic, a complete overhaul of the U.S. tax system is unlikely. However, we can expect tax law changes similar to what we have today, and it's going to focus on extending current cuts, as well as a possibility of increasing tariffs to cover those long-term cuts. What does everybody think? Do you think that removing income taxes is a good or a bad idea? Let me know what you think in the comments. And if you want to stay ahead of any tax law changes, as well as get the most up-to-date money-saving tips and news that's going on in the world today, please subscribe to my channel.